Online. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee on the Tuesday, the 11th of July. I've just got a few things to read out and then we'll get on with our applications. So all present are reminded to adhere to the following safety procedures. Wipes and sanitisers have been provided on the table for speakers. Please use these before and after each speaking slot, ready for the speakers on the subsequent applications. The meeting will be recorded and live streamed by Harbury District Council. Members and public speakers must use the desk microphones, otherwise the recording will not work. Only 2 microphones, in addition to the chairman's, can be on at the same time. Mobile phones. Members and the public should switch off their phones, please. Fire exits. Now, the fire exits are there at that door, and this door here. And the meeting point is at the top end of Mill Hill car park, if necessary. Leaving during the meeting, people may come and go normally during the meeting. Now, the council is aware that planning applications may be controversial and emotive for those affected by the decisions made by this committee. However, all persons present are reminded that the council will not tolerate abusive or aggressive behaviour towards staff or other visitors attending this meeting, and anyone behaving inappropriately will be required to leave the meeting and the building. I'll just do a few introductions. I'll ask everybody to introduce themselves, starting with the top table down at that end, please.
I'm Ella Newman. I'm a Democratic Services Officer.
Councillor Peter James from Little Bowden Ward, Market Harbour.
Simon Wellbank, Kibworth.
Peter Elliott, Thurmby and Houghton Ward.
David Gare, Lutterworth East.
Councillor Grafton Road for Broughton Astley.
Samantha Hammond, Senior Planning Officer.
Adrian Eastwood, Head of Service Development Management.
James Felton, Locum Solicitor.
Christine Alsasser, Democratic Services.
Thank you very much, everybody. And now we'll return to the agenda. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence and notification of substitutions. Councillor Asher is absent on holiday. There's no substitute for her. Councillor Cindy Moder and Councillor Joshua Worrell are both absent, and Councillor Moder is substituted by Councillor Grafton Reid, and Councillor Worrell is substituted by Councillor Bateman. Item number 3, declaration of members' interests. Have anyone got any interests? Councillor Gare?
Yeah, the first item of planning on the agenda, the stables on Moorbarns Lane. As a member of Lutterworth Town Council Planning, I voted against that some months ago. I took advice from James Felton about this, who told me it was my decision whether to remain or not, but in the circumstances it would not look good. However, since I made that decision, I've received a great deal more information and made a site visit, so I'm in possession of a lot more information. I do believe I can keep an open mind on this, so I shall remain.
It's your decision. Thank you. Item number 4, to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting of the Planning Committee held on the 6th of June 2023. Hope you've all read them. Can I have somebody to propose those, please? Councillor Gare, someone to second? Thank you, Councillor.
Happy to second.
Can we have a vote on whether to accept them or not, please? Anyone in favour? Everyone in favour? Thank you very much. I've got to sign them. Okay, item number 5, referral up to council by the Planning Committee to consider any referrals under Part 3, Section B1.4 of the Council's Constitution. Anyone want to refer anything? No? Thank you very much. Number 6, to answer written questions or receive petitions submitted by the public. There are none. So we'll continue now with our applications for development. And the first application is reference numbers 22/00719/FUL, 22/00759/VAC, 22/00764/VAC, 22/00767/VAC, land at ATE Farms Limited, Moor Barnes Lane, Lutterworth. I believe we're taking them all together, aren't we, Adrian? And Adrian is going to present.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, there were actually 4 applications here. As set out in the report, we think it's appropriate to take a single decision because of the associations with the applications. That said, if anything comes up in the discussion or there's any requirement to take a separate decision, we can do that. But we'll see how the presentation goes in the discussion. The advice at the moment is we should be able to take them as one single decision. So effectively, it's an application for 21 holiday homes. This is land off Moor Barnes Lane at Lutterworth, and then 3 other applications related to really relinquishing the condition that restricts the equestrian use on associated buildings from private to commercial, and that would tie in if the plan permission is granted for the holiday home use in effect. So that's why the applications were all associated together. We did do a site visit to Moor Barnes Lane yesterday, so thank you for those that were able to attend. You'll see from the committee papers, this item was actually reported to Planning Committee in April and deferred for that site visit, and deferred actually for some more highway information. And there's on page 30 of the report you've got there, does update the highway situation. In effect, the applicant did do some more highway work, looking at the different uses along Moor Barnes Lane, traffic count, I believe. That has been back to the Highway Authority, who didn't object the first time around, and they've confirmed with the further information they're satisfied with the proposals. There's no highway danger or highway safety issues arising. So the holiday units, I'll go to one of the layout plans here. If the cursor's highlighting for you, hopefully, and the southeastern corner really of the site is where the holiday units proposed. From the report, and certainly from those that went on the site visit, the land has fallen away quite significantly and dips down into this corner from the north of the site. So it is the less intrusive part of the site, I would suggest. This is the access serving the site. When we did the site visit, we actually entered from an access just a bit further down, where this is often locked, but it's open yesterday actually and was open today. So there'll be a new driveway made down to the holiday lodges if I go back to the layout plan from that access in the top corner, and then it'll follow down into the holiday lodges. As I've described already, the site falls away, so the holiday lodges in fact will be sited almost on that photograph, and those that certainly went on the site. Behind the marked out with small fences, paddocks, the access down the side here, and it's as the land drops away, you can see from the hedgerows, trees at the bottom, holiday lodges start to get sited at the bottom there. Again, that's the holiday lodge layout, and one of the buildings is actually an office unit effectively for the site manager. So this is typical overhead of the accommodation that, if approved, will come forwards. Fairly simple holiday let time unit. That is the office building, so it's similar designs, just slightly larger, slightly different layout. So this is the variation of the conditions. So the conditions relate to the equestrian uses on the immediately adjacent land, and we saw this on the site visit. So it's the buildings to the northwest here, there would be, or to the north in particular. Just highlighting with a cursor. So actually, when we went yesterday, the stables were not in use, but you can see in the past they've been well used. That's a stable building there as well. I think it's probably 10 stables and 8 from memory. And a menage area. As per the previous recommendation to committee, it's an equestrian holiday use in the countryside. It does satisfy in principle planning policy. We've looked at the highway situation, been back to look at it. The highway authority is satisfied. We're all aware of the number of uses on Moor Barnes Lane and the fact that you go through primary school and high school to get there. And there's the waste tip as well, civic tip. But the highway authority have looked at the information, they're quite satisfied, there's no conflict with highway safety. So they have no technical objections to this. It's not, from an officer point of view, as I've explained, intrusive in the countryside. It satisfies planning policy in terms of being an appropriate use in the countryside, and hence it's recommended for approval along with the variation of conditions, because that would then tie in with a commercial use for the holiday let. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Adrian. We've got one speaker on this, and he seems to want to speak to all 4 of them, but I'm sure we could persuade Mr. Wiggins to perhaps speak. What would you like? 6 minutes? Would that be all right, or 3?
Yeah, I can try and stick within 3 minutes.
Okay, that would be very suitable. Thank you very much. You'd like to start whenever you're ready, and you'll be warned at 30 seconds. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Chair, members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of these applications, which were deferred at the April meeting of the committee. In response to the deferral of the applications, my clients have commissioned additional traffic surveys and prepared an update to the submitted transport statement. The updated surveys include a further traffic survey when the school was open and the civic amenity site was in operation. In addition, Moor Barnes Lane was surveyed to record non-motorised trips, including equestrian use. The latest survey results showed the maximum use for vehicles was on Saturday, the 29th of April, 606 vehicles, which equates to 50 vehicles over 12 hours, or less than 1 vehicle per minute. The vast majority of this traffic was likely to be visiting the civic amenity site. Maximum of 24 pedestrian movements were recorded on Sunday, the 30th, and no equestrian use was recorded on any day. It's not expected that horse riders from the site would utilise Moor Barnes Lane. This low level of activity indicates Moor Barnes Lane is capable of accommodating the additional vehicle movements that will be generated by the proposal without any harm to capacity or highway safety. And this conclusion mirrors the comments made by the Highway Authority on the proposals and in response to the updated surveys. Highway Authority have supported the scheme subject to conditions, stating that it's unlikely that the additional trips generated by the proposed development would have a material impact on the existing highway network during the weekday or weekend highway network peak hours. Obviously, the survey work that we've done indicates that a total of 69 movements would be generated by the use on a weekday. That's the maximum number. Your officer's report goes on in detail on the highway issues, but it's clear it concludes the applicant has satisfactorily demonstrated a safe and suitable access, and that the use would not generate levels of traffic which would be harmful to highway safety. Whilst the problems associated with school traffic at the junction with Woodmarket are acknowledged, this proposal would not exacerbate the issue because the majority of the highway lodge traffic would be generated outside of the morning and afternoon peaks caused by parents dropping off and picking up children. I clearly share your officer's view the application accords with the development plan and the conclusion that it represents an acceptable use in the countryside that would not have a significant impact on the landscape. Land's already in equestrian use, and the current proposal would bring additional economic benefits in terms of direct and indirect employment and additional spend in the local economy. It also bring environmental benefits in terms of habitat creation and enhancement and biodiversity net gain, as well as a recreational equestrian use, which would bring social benefits in the form of improved health, well-being of users, etc. The lodges are not residential dwellings. They relate to tourism and leisure facilities for which there's a clear and documented need. They'll provide investment and employment. They'll provide recreational opportunities for visitors, and some guests may bring their own horses. The officer's report confirms that this would be controlled by condition 10, which would limit occupation and ensure that the lodges could not be occupied as main residences. So, in my opinion, there are no material planning considerations indicating that the proposal should not be approved. I'm not aware that there are any other technical or design concerns raised at the April meeting of the committee, and accordingly, now that the highways issue has been further analysed, I'd urge members to support the officer's recommendation and approve these applications.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wiggins. Were any questions for Mr. Wiggins? No, there are none. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll open it up to the committee. Who wants to go first? Councillor Wellbank.
Just to say, I support this scheme. I think the applicant's done enough to demonstrate highways concerns, and I have no other issues with it at all. I think it's a good scheme, so I'm happy to propose the application.
Have you got a seconder? Councillor Elliott.
Yes, I just second.
Okay. Has anyone got anything else to say? Councillor Gale, perhaps?
No. Well, I would only say the problem with the schools is well known to everybody in Lutterworth as it is. I mean, people simply avoid that area at school times. And I'm sure it's the same in most of the villages. You don't do near the primary school at opening and shutting times. So this won't make any difference to that if people don't arrive at those times.
Okay, thank you very much. So if nobody's got anything else to say, I'll take it to the vote. So all in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And that application is approved. The second application tonight is at Great Bowden. So the application reference number is 22/00787/FUL. The land off Dingley Road, Great Bowden, and also at the Red Line. So Adrian Eastwood is the presenting officer tonight.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So as set out in the committee report, this has been submitted as a dual application, and there's some discussion and explanation of that in the papers before you. So in effect, we've got two sites. The just highlighting, hopefully the cursor showing it for people, the Red Line site, the public house site, and then Dingley Road site. So in the Dingley Road site, most of the presentation will focus on is there's 3 dwellings and a car park proposed when we get to the plans. The Red Line part of the site, you'll see through the planning history, etc., has a development, we'll call it a quadrant courtyard, outdoor part of the pub. That in itself has been to committee before. On this occasion, it's come forward as part of the this dual site application. There is some information on the supplementary list to have a look at. In addition to that, actually, after publicising the supplementary list, I just report the fact that I did get an email from the on behalf of the applicants, and their Gately legal advice was accompanied with that. That was just after 3 o'clock this afternoon. They have a different view, put forward a different view to how the council could continue with the application. From the officer's point of view, we continue as it's set out on the supplementary papers, and we have a proposal for us not deciding the 3 variants or the original scheme that's set out on the supplementary papers. But just acknowledging the applicant has a different view to that, and that's been provided to myself and James Helton, the legal officer. So this is the layout of the proposal at the Dingley Road site. So you've got 3 dwellings and a car park area here running up to the village hall. We did do a site visit to this site yesterday, so thank you for those who were able to attend that. Members will also see this particular part has, from the planning history, has had an appeal history in the past as well. This is the Red Line part of the site, the dual site. So as I explained, there's a courtyard, a quadrant courtyard, we often call it there. And this actually is a photograph, I think, hopefully provided by the applicant, I understand, in the last few days. So that's what the entrance to the Red Line looks like as it stands at the moment. There's some photographs here of the Dingley Road site, and I suspect it's familiar to many people who will be using this road. I'll just highlight, as it features in the recommended reasons for refusal, particularly the listed buildings here and the access to the site. When I go back to the layout plan, if I can, is approximately just before you get near those listed buildings. So there's a bit of a lag with the cursor key, so I'm doing my best on that. So this is a view, obviously from the nearby cemetery, looking towards the site. On the site visit, we looked at that, and you can just make out, actually, I'll try and highlight it, it's a non-designated heritage asset here. This is the top of the village hall. And this is looking towards the cemetery. I think in the background there you've got the cemetery wall, so this is from the other side of that photograph. Again, I think this photo, actually, certainly the one on the right hand side, this was probably from the extended area of the cemetery, looking at that wire fence there, because the cemetery has had a small extension in recent years, so it's the other side of the wall that we were looking at there. This photograph actually is looking, the gate there features on the layout plan as a pedestrian access from the car park. So the top left photo image here, you're effectively looking at the proposed car parking area, and that's what these photographs are looking at. The bottom photographs, actually, the bottom left is the boundary with, I think it's number 10. And that photograph on the bottom right there shows the open boundary to that property. But one of the reasons for refusal is a neighbour impact, car parking effectively on that boundary. There is a proposal to have a noise attenuation fence. The officers aren't satisfied that would overcome the neighbour impact situation. So this again is showing the car park, proposed car parking area, and the relationship with the neighbouring property. And in fact, the other neighbouring property that we're concerned about, as we've mentioned in the previous refusal, does have a substantial brick wall on part of its boundary, but it doesn't continue along the whole boundary. As you can see here, there's a hedgerow there. This photograph on the right hand side, as I look at it, this is the car park area. As you're going out, the gate at the bottom there would be where the 3 proposed dwellings would be situated. This is the pedestrian access. The pillars there are listed, and so that features in setting out a car park detracted from setting of the pillars as part of the concern. The photograph on the left hand side there shows a limited visibility for pedestrians if they were to head out of the village along the Dingley Road there. Highway Authority haven't recommended that as a reason to refuse, and officers don't recommend that as a reason for refusal. We recognise it's quite restricted, but the Highway Authority, I think, consider it's unlikely to be highly used, so there's no basis to pursue that as a grounds of refusal from the officer's point of view. So these are the individual designs of the dwellings, and as individual designs, they're clearly attractively designed in their own right as individual properties. But the concern is that the overall layout and its context and situation does detract from the character and appearance of the area and the conservation area. And that's set out in the report. Street scene image there. So this is the proposed car parking layout. With the pedestrian access to the west there. Again, more images of the area and the neighbouring patch. Okay, so if I go back to the I'll just really sum up in terms of, I think, because there are 5 recommended reasons for refusals. I have tried to pick up on the salient points as I go through the images there. Get back to the layout. As a first concern, as a recommended reason for refusal, is the impact on nearby listed buildings and conservation area. A car park is put forward as a benefit to the village, and there is some text in the neighbourhood plan that looks in general for enhanced car parking, but from the officer's point of view, that benefit in this location doesn't outweigh the harm to the listed buildings. The site itself, the dwellings are outside the Great Bowden limits to development in terms of the neighbourhood plan, and there's a policy conflict there. So the overall, the design scale and layout of the buildings and the car park would detract from the rural character setting at the edge of the village here. The dwellings proposed are quite large. They don't meet the neighbourhood plan mix for housing, which is set out in the report, and a little bit smaller bedroom sizes, or bedroom numbers rather. And finally, the car park itself has an impact. Its use would have an impact on the particularly two neighbouring residential properties, which I'm just highlighting there. From Loss's point of view, that is not overcome by the use on one side of a noise attenuation fence. For all those reasons, the proposal is recommended for refusal. Chairman, I'll see the several speakers, so we'll probably see how we go.
Very much,
Thank
Adrian. So we've got the first speaker is Jacqueline Endersby. Would you like to come up to the table, please, and switch the microphone on? You've got 3 minutes, and you'll be given a 30-second warning when you get to 2.5 minutes. So start when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been a resident of Great Barton for 28 years, living directly opposite the Red Lion Public House, and object to this application for 3 principal reasons. It creates unsafe driving conditions on the Dingley Road access to and from the village, and is unlikely to ease the hazardous and inconvenient parking on Main Street near the Red Line. It leads to urbanisation of a rural environment and loss of important separation land. It is the installation of the courtyard which has led to the greatly increased size of the pub, which has created noise, light and sensory pollution, as well as the parking problems on Main Street. Dingley Road is narrow with blind bends, much resident church hall parking on the left-hand side as you leave the village. Quick stops and reverses are frequently required as cars travelling in opposite directions enter and leave the village. More cars accessing this stretch of road from the proposed houses and car park can only increase the already significant hazards of using this road, which is the village's main access to the A6 north and south and all eastward directions to Corby and beyond. Human behaviour being what it is, I do not believe that customers of the Red Lion or its staff will choose to drive to the opposite side of the village if they can see a place in the immediate vicinity of the establishment. People who are prepared to park on street corners or obstruct driveways as they do now, rather than go even a few metres down an adjoining street, will not be tempted by the car park. Thus, the lack of a parking space near my home, which I frequently experience, will continue, as will vehicles parked on both sides of the road, creating unsafe passage for through traffic, particularly buses and emergency vehicles. Housing and a municipal style car park on important separation land between the village and Market Harbour, with the inevitable increase in signage throughout the village, is inappropriate development for a rural location. Given that I believe few, if any, people will be prepared to pay for their parking, they will continue to street park as they do now on the roads around the various hospitality businesses and shops. Finally, it is the installation of the quadrant which has greatly expanded the size of the pub, which has caused all the access and parking problems on Main Street, as well as light, noise and sensory pollution, which should therefore be removed. In summary, the development proposed in this application is unsafe, inappropriate for a village, and will not ease the parking problems and environmental problems on Main Street created by the expansion of the Red Lion and the loss of its on-site parking. I urge the rejection of the application in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Endersby. Has anyone got any questions for the speaker? No, thank you very much. The next speaker is Mrs. Elizabeth Denness. You'd like to sit down and switch the microphone on again? You've got 3 minutes as well. Start when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair and members. The recent appeal decision, which required the reinstatement of parking spaces at the Red Lion and considered that the amount of available on-street parking was adequate for all, was not much comfort to the justifiably aggrieved and displaced local residents. However, taken at its word, the decision renders the proposed community car park unnecessary. Whilst we would all agree that parking congestion in the village causes a problem, we do not want it solved by building a car park in a much-loved paddock, which makes such a contribution to the character of the village centre. Number 10 Dingley Road and 44A The Green would be greatly impacted by the comings and goings associated with the car park, sometimes until late into the evening. Its appearance is not in character with its surroundings and will affect the significance and setting of the listed wall and gate pillars adjoining the village hall. The setting of the listed buildings on Dingley Road will also be affected by a combination of the open aspect of the access road and the proposed works to the trees. If these works are carried out as per the applicant's tree survey, their screening effect for the car park and the proposed houses will be much reduced, more than is evident from the plans submitted. The pedestrian exit opposite the church is on a blind bend and unsafe for pedestrians turning right. To solve this, signage is proposed advising in such instances that pedestrians exit only by the main entrance. This advice would be reliant on the sign remaining in place and unvandalised, and that it is required at all surely means that the exit is not fit for purpose. The visibility of the signage associated with access, payment and safe exit and lighting in the evening would all contribute to the urbanisation of the village centre and Dingley Road. To make sure the car park was used and therefore financially viable, it is more than likely that parking restrictions would have to be introduced. This would affect passing trade for businesses in the village centre, and visitors trying to avoid parking charges would park further into the village, affecting even more residents. There are also concerns regarding illegal overnight parking and antisocial behaviour. The redirection of traffic from the village centre along Dingley Road to the car park entrance will add to the congestion of this already busy and hazardous route. If this chargeable car park fails, a green space will have been lost to no benefit, and having changed the use of the land, it opens the door to further housing development applications. We respectfully ask that you refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions? No? Thank you very much. The next speaker is Reverend Mike Corcoran. Hello, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you for the time this evening. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my wife, who's the vicar of Great Bowden. The applicant states that the initial planning application only received 47 objections, which they believe is small in comparison to the consultation about the Great Bowden neighbourhood plan. We believe that 47 objections with no residents supporting the application is not an insignificant amount of opposition from the people who live here and know the village best. Also, we don't feel that it's fair for the applicant to compare the consultation about the Great Bowden neighbourhood plan with their planning application. The two are separate and discrete consultations requiring different methodologies and asking for community feedback on different issues. We question the impact of the proposed development on the conservation area, the loss of valuable separation land and natural habitats. In 2018, a previous planning application for this site, known as Christchurch Paddock, was dismissed on appeal. The inspector stating that its open agricultural character contributes considerably, both functionally and visually, to the setting of the conservation area. The Great Bowden neighbourhood plan supports the provision of more affordable housing for the village. The planning application proposes the provision of 3 large houses well out of the reach of the average pay packet. As a selected rural village in the local plan, Great Bowden housing development should prioritise social housing and housing that aims to meet local needs. The proposal doesn't satisfy the Great Bowden neighbourhood plan's policy H4. We're also concerned about the impact of the proposal would have on the peace and tranquility of the village cemetery and its ability to expand in the future. In 2018, the planning inspector noticed the cemetery's value as a place of rest, reflection, solemnity and dignity. Given its separation from the village, these qualities add to the cemetery's significance as a heritage asset. Finally, there's no acknowledgement of the negative impact the proposal would have on 17 Dingley Road and 19 Dingley Road. Both we and the Leicester Anglican Diocese who own our property still have several highway and safety concerns. There would be significant increase to vehicle and pedestrian traffic entering and exiting onto a quick road with very poor visibility opposite a busy parish vicarage. We also believe that the community car park would generate additional noise and lighting, which would disturb the enjoyment of our home. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Any questions? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mr. Raj Opal, the applicant. Would you like to come? You have 9 minutes. And we're doing the first application, which is the dual application. But you get 9 minutes because there have been 3 objectors. So you're lucky you get 9. If you want 9. We're considering the application in the agenda pack. Yeah. That's what we're considering tonight. So perhaps Adrian could.
Yes, Mr. Uppal's asking a question which I referred to as mentioned on the supplementary papers, and then I referred to the fact we'd had an email this afternoon, 3 o'clock after that. Mr. Uppal's representatives submitted, as referred to on lateness, variance of a scheme. My advice to the committee is we should be determining the proposal that's been put before us, not variance. We're not, with respect to picking and choosing schemes. I don't know if James Felton wants to add anything to that.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to endorse that view as well from myself. Thank you.
You'd like to start whenever you're ready.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in favour of this application, the main element of which is the provision of a community car park with up to 48 car park spaces for the village of Great Bowden, funded by the erection of 3 well-designed dwellings which are set in an off-road cluster and a characteristic of the village of Great Bowden. This application takes account of the development plan as a whole, and it also takes account of the previous planning inspector's decisions relating to the Dingley Road site, which was mentioned by one of the objectors earlier. That application was for 10 dwellings, rather than the 3 now proposed. And it also takes account of the inspector's decision on the Red Lion quadrant. In the report to committee, there are 5 suggested reasons for refusal. Harm to heritage assets. No evidence has been produced from HDC to support that, and it is contrary to the report that we commissioned and have submitted as part of this application. And although we do not accept that the proposed development causes any such harm, as outlined by HDC, the recent proposals which we have made and which our legal advice is pretty clear should be taken into account in the application, seeks to reduce the size of the car park, if that is what HDC require, and removes the footpath nearest to the listed piers from the application. Item 2, or reason 2, development in open countryside. We've stated that the dwellings are required to fund the community car park and are sustainable and characteristics of other development in Great Bowden. Reason 3, failure to respect the form and character of the surrounding area. Again, there is no evidence from HDC, and it's contrary to the report that we have commissioned and submitted as part of this application. The development is an off-road cluster of 3 houses and is characteristic of other developments in Great Bowden, including the small development of 4 detached houses on the other side of Dingley Road, which is planning reference 16009970 UT, and the associated conditions discharge, and it's referred to in paragraph 1.7 of the report to committee. The housing mix was stated for reason 4, and as you'll probably appreciate, it's difficult to achieve a full housing mix on a 3 development site. In terms of item 5, a significant adverse effect on the living conditions of number 10 Dingley Road and number 44A The Green. And again, although we do not accept HDC's position, we have, as I've noted earlier, made proposals to HDC to reduce the number of car park spaces from 48 to 25, with consequent reduction in footpaths and lighting. Part of the reason we've been able to make that reduction from 48 to 25 relates to the favourable decision by the inspector, who was of the view that no car parking specific to the Red Lion was required as part of the grant of planning permission for the Quadrant Courtyard. Just in terms of the community car park, the Great Bowden Neighbourhood Plan identifies the lack of off-street parking as the single biggest planning related issue affecting the settlement, and it contains a commitment to new centrally sited car parking facilities. The neighbourhood plan does not allocate a single site as a public car park, and nor has any other scheme come forward to address what the neighbourhood plan identifies as its most pressing concern. Paragraph 2.3 of your own local plan sets out as objective 14, and this is in your words, that you will encourage and support communities to make decisions at the local level through the preparation of neighbourhood plans. This application is for a rational and sustainable development which, taken as a whole, complies with the development plan, and planning permission should be granted. And just a few words on the failure of this committee to consider the proposals to reduce the size of the car park. Attempts have been made to meet with Adrian Eastwood and other planning officers to discuss this application during June, and those attempts have been completely stonewalled. Members will be aware that the Red Lion site has been the subject of 2 recent appeals, both of which were decided in favour of the applicant, and a cost award was made against Harbour Council. That cost award was made for in respect of Harbour Council acting unreasonably, which I'm of the firm view they will be doing again tonight if they don't consider the submissions that we've made. I would urge members of this newly formed planning committee to stop the waste of taxpayers' money and work together with applicants who continue to invest in and expand local businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Has anyone got questions for Mr. O'Connor? Yes, Councillor James.
Yes, one question, please. It's about the car parking. I think with on page 103, we talk about the proposed car park provide 25 spaces for the public house. So that presumably is including the staff who work at the public house and the users, the clients, yeah?
Could I just turn to 103 to see the reference you're making?
Sorry?
Could I turn to page 103? Are you referring to?
Yeah, I'm referring to 687 on page 103. 25 spaces, which I think nominally are being allocated to the staff and to the users. My question really is, how many staff are we talking about there, and where are they parking now?
All the staff and customers of the Red Lion are parking on the streets, as it's consistent with other businesses in Great Bowden. And following the inspector's decision that no additional car parking other than the reinstatement of the 6 is required for the operation of the Red Lion, we have sought to discuss this with Harbour Council, but have been stonewalled, and that has enabled us to make a change to the car park to reduce the number to 25 as a solely community-based car park without any designation of Red Lion specific car park spaces. So the 25 spaces would be for general use for members of the public.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I've got a question for you, Mr. O'Connor. The land that's between the cemetery and the 3 houses that you're proposing, plus the road, who will look after that land, and will it be open to the public? Because I think there's some concerns with residents that the public using that land for picnics, etc., will spoil the tranquil nature of the cemetery. So what have you got planned for it's got a balancing pond in it and I think some heritage asset. So what have you got planned for that bit?
Well, that land was put there in this particular land wasn't put there. The designation of that land was as a response to the inspector's decision on the previous application for 10 dwellings. So we attempted to create a buffer between the 3 houses and the cemetery. That land will remain private, but could be subject to condition, could be subject to a management agreement, and could be subject to discussion with Harborough District Councillors exactly what they would want that land used for. But we would be open to any sensible condition or Section 106 agreement covering the use of that land.
So you don't envisage it just being open to the public?
No, it's all private land.
Yeah,
But I'm not
so
sure.
fenced off or something?
It could be fenced off.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, just wondered what you were thinking of doing with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Paul Claxton from the Parish Council, 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Firstly, I would like to congratulate the officer on his attention to duty. We agree with him that the proposal is outside the limits of development. We agree with him that the proposal does not contain any affordable housing. We agree with him that it's in an area of separation. We agree with him that it does not protect the local green space. And with regard to this site, the entrance to this is on a blind radius curve. And if you look in detail, there is the vicarage access, there is the manse access, there is the 5-house development opposite, which has an access, and the cemetery access. And the applicant now says that he wants to put a further access in there. Anybody who's driven up that road, either in or out of the village, knows that it is an absolute accident waiting to happen. It's a blind curve. To suggest that 3 houses and people using that car park can come out through that entrance onto that curve justifies any logic whatsoever. So I would strongly advise and recommend that you follow your officer's proposal and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Claxton. Has anyone got any questions for Mr. Claxton? No, thank you very much. Thank you. Right, it's open to the committee. Who wants to go first? Anybody? Oh, Councillor Elliott.
Yes, I have a few concerns about this application. I was on site visit yesterday, and particularly 10 Dingley Road at the moment looks out onto a greenfield site. But if the car park was put there, at best it would look out onto a sea of cars, basically, and the worst it would look out onto a fence. I don't think that's fair on the people at all. And I think it's a too rural place to have a car park, personally. Also, plot 3, and there's giant ash trees behind it. There'll be no sun get there whatsoever, as far as I can see. And there's 1 or 2 things, but I'll listen to what everybody else has got to say.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Anyone else got anything to comment on? Councillor Mahal? Thank you.
Listening to the various comments made, I wasn't at the site visit, unfortunately, but I do know of the area, both as a rural area as well. And I think from a business point of view, I think it's a good option. Car parks, I think, unless there are car parks to go to for people to park and to then walk and enjoy the local area. I mean, as I say, I wasn't at the site visit, so I don't know about the housing either. But I think from a business point of view, it's as far as I'm concerned, it's a good proposal. Anyone else? Huh?
I think it's fairly clear from the reports that I don't think this is an acceptable scheme in any way, shape or form. There's just too many reasons for us to refuse it. for all sorts of reasons, as the speakers have said as well. I'm happy to propose refusal. Thank you.
Thank you. Proposed by councillor Wellman. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Gare, would you like to say anything?
Second.
Have you got anything else you'd like to say?
I mean, first of all, there's concern that this is going into a separation area. My experience of that is there is then creep into further parts of the separation area that follow. It's replacing a set of car parking with another set of car parking out of the village, and people will use it as a last resort, not as a first. And I think it's an inappropriate scale of commercial development for a village of that size to support that. So,
thank you very much. Anyone else got any comments? Otherwise, I'll take it to the vote. Got a proposer proposed by councillor Wellman and seconded by councillor Gare that we refuse this application with the 5 reasons for refusal. And I think there's an altered one on the supplementary list. Number 1 has been slightly rewritten. So all in favour of refusing this application, please show. Against? You're abstaining. Right, so that application is refused. Thank you very much. Right, our next application is the Red Lion Public House at Main Street, Great Bowden, 23/00815/VAC and 23/00816/VAC. Adrian Eastwood is going to present this one as well.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We've got 2 applications. We propose to take it as one decision because the issues are so similar. Unless in the discussions and debate something arises differently. We probably got speakers on both items. If they choose to speak twice, that's a matter for them. I'm sure the chairman will ask. So this is the Red Lion Public House site. So obviously it was part of the application we've just discussed as a dual application. These applications arise from the planning appeal that was decided. A decision came out earlier this year. There were 2 applications because that planning appeal was 1 a planning appeal and 2 a planning enforcement appeal. And the applicant in this case is looking to vary the planning condition, which effectively is the same on both of those appeal decisions, and looking to extend the time period for which to provide the car parking, 6 car parking spaces, which that planning inspector said should be provided. So you've got a layout plan here of the site, and here, as I say, that's the photo of the situation as it is at the moment. So the contention there was that the planning inspector said the parking should be provided within 4 months. I think it's over 20 months now that the applicant's application seeks to vary to. From an officer point of view, we've got a recent planning appeal decision. There may well be a dispute about that decision, but that's outside of our control. As it stands, we've got a current planning appeal decision. The planning conditions, as far as the officer concerned, are there to be upheld. We see no reason to vary from that. The reasons the applicant's given, you may speak tonight and speak to those that set out in the report and in the paperwork with the applications. From an officer point of view, we see no reason to vary away from the planning inspector's recent requirements, and hence we say these applications are recommended for refusal. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. We have some speakers on this one. You're down to speak on the 2. Do you want to speak on each one, or do you want to combine your minutes, as it were, to speak on say the same thing on each one? So first of all, we've got Jacqueline Endersby. Would you like to speak? You're down to speak on the first variation of condition. Okay, so we'll take the two together.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
I wish to object most strongly to the variations applied for in these two applications. I live at 16 Main Street, directly opposite the Red Lion. Restoration of the 6 car parking spaces, as indicated by the planning inspector, would provide some much needed relief from the parking congestion that the enlargement of this pub has caused. A delay of 2 years is unacceptable and I believe unnecessary. It would also bring some certainty regarding the so-called quadrant, and that hopefully would mean an end to the deluge of overlapping planning applications and appeals which have marred my life and that of other residents over the past 3 years. The reinstatement of these 6 spaces, which have in many of his applications been shown on the plans, would grant the applicant almost all that he has sought by way of retrospective permissions. This pub has always had some customer parking. It is unfortunate, to say the least, that the owner has deliberately built on half the area, but room for 6 cars remains in the position and of the same size as has operated safely for many, many years. Reinstatement would entail very little work and could be carried out well within the timescale indicated. I do not believe the removal of the hedge would be necessary, as the application, somewhat to me menacingly, threatens, as the car park has operated with it in the past. If for any reason it was removed, it could be replaced with a fence and thinner planting similar to that on the exposed side of the quadrant. I doubt that the applicant would want to leave his pizza oven, wooden shed-like preparation and storage area exposed, so fencing would be needed by him as much as to screen the light and noise pollution created by his operation and customers. Bin storage could revert to the yard behind the pub, where it has been for much of the pub's lifetime. Use of the car parking area for its intended purpose would also reduce the noise and disturbance caused by the ball and other games that younger customers often use the area for at present. As an example, this was audible, the football banging on inside my house on Sunday over the noise of Wimbledon on the television. Customers always safely access the garden at the rear of the pub via the car park as well as through the main building, so no change will be caused by the restoration of parking. If thought necessary, the applicant could say restrict 5 of these spaces for staff and allocate 1 place as a blue badge space. This would effectively reduce the number of vehicle movements in the car park whilst the pub is open. It would also reduce the long-term staff parking on Main Street, which occurs daily at present. Certainty is needed in this part of the village. Refusing these applicants could bring that, much as I regret the permanence of the quadrant it would generate. A delay of 2 years, which would then no doubt be followed by yet more applications, is simply unfair to residents and of no assistance with parking issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Has anyone got any questions? No, thank you. Next speaker is Mr. Uppal. Are you going to speak to both of them? Okay, thank you very much. So you've got 3 minutes then. Thanks very much. Could you put your microphone on, please, and just start again?
I'll start again.
Thank you.
These 2 applications which are before you seek to delay the construction of a 6-space car park for 2 years until the ultimate outcome of the earlier application has been determined by a planning inspector. The previous application would negate the necessity for the 6 car park spaces, and so that is the reason for this request. The construction of the car park, despite what previous speaker said, does require the removal of the mature beech hedge that's shown there in front of you, and can be confirmed by looking at the drawings. And in the event that we are not required to construct the car park, following an inspector's decision, it would take decades to establish an equivalent hedge which screens a Red Lion garden from High Street. In my view, there can be no urgency to construct this car park, as the Red Lion has operated in its current format for over 2 years, nearly 3 years, and the car park provision is limited to just 6 spaces. It would be a complete waste of resource for the Red Lion to construct the car park, remove the hedge, and then reverse that position if it was ultimately successful in obtaining a grant of planning permission in respect of that earlier application. I hope that the Planning Committee will concur with that view and takes a pragmatic view. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then anyone got any questions? Oh, yes, Councillor Bateman.
Thank you. Just one for the gentleman. I notice in the report, page 138, that the conditions of the appeal were discussed at the time, and the inspector provided advance notice of the conditions prior to issuing the decision, but there was no consultation between yourself or your agents or representative and the inspector as to any kind of issue with those conditions. Is there any reason why nothing was said at the time and you're bringing it forward now, just out of interest?
The position you've stated is not correct, and will form part of the court case that's ongoing. But I've been advised that we shouldn't really discuss that court case in these proceedings here.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Mr. Paul Claxton. Would you like to do the same and do the two? Thanks very much. You've got 3 minutes then, when you're ready.
Having lived on the site and opposite the site since 1984, I can tell you that the boundary of the site, car parking area, is no different now than it was in 1984. The left side is the same, the rear is the same, the right hand side is the same. The car park has not shrunk or grown in any way, shape or form. The only thing that has changed is the quadrant has been built at the top end of the car park, and the bin store, you can see the black area. Those bins always were in the backyard of the pub. If the disabled access were moved to the left-hand side, that would create enough space for them to get up. Doesn't need to be as wide as that. As you're well aware, the width of a footpath for disabled access doesn't need to be that side. So all it needs is that block paving moving to the left-hand side, the bin store moving, those 2 tree planters taken out of the way, and then you wouldn't have the situation that I and others who live there have every night, where it's a complete rat run. Both sides of the road are jam-packed with cars, and leaving my house, my drive tonight, I was nearly taken out by a car travelling down Main Street at speed. They speed up to get through because of the people coming up from the green on a blind curve. They tried to get down to the end very, very quickly. There's nothing to stop you parking 6 cars on that site. It wouldn't take any length of time whatsoever. It took less than that time to build the quadrant and to do what they've done here. So why delay things? Why aggravate people any more than they already have, unless that's your intention, just to annoy people who live in the locality? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Claxton. There weren't any questions for him, were there? That's all right. Carry on. It's open to the committee now. The 2 variations of condition which were set by the planning inspector at the appeal. I think the report explains it all quite clearly to us, and has anyone got anything to say about them? No. Councillor Bateman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, I can only say really, as far as I can see from this, it's gone to appeal. The inspectors made their decision. They have imposed these conditions, and I find that I agree with the inspector, and I therefore agree with the recommendations within our own report tonight to go along with the inspector's decision. Proposing to refuse.
So we've got a second of this. Thank you, Councillor Grafton Reid.
Second that proposal.
Okay, thanks very much. Are there any more comments? If not, I'll go to the vote. So it's proposed by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Grafton Reid that we follow the officer's advice and refuse the both the VACs that we've got here. Can I have a show of hands, please? Right, so that's any against? You abstaining again? Okay, thank you very much. Well, that application is now refused. Thank you, everybody. Give people time to leave the chamber if they are doing.
Leaves. Oh, yeah.
Right. The next application is at Hungerton Lane, Keam. So the next application is application reference number 21/01848/FUL, land adjacent to Walker's Stables, Hungerton Lane, Keam, Leicestershire, and the presenting officer is Adrian Eastwood.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So this is an application for a single traveller pitch. The description in front of you actually says retrospective. I think I'll probably correct that now to partly retrospective. We had an email today, for example, that said there's no longer a caravan on the site at the moment, but there has been a pitch laid out, if you like, potential for that. This is obviously to the north of the district, extreme north of the district. It's been ongoing for some time, this application protracted, and that is around the highway issues that you'll see reported in the committee papers. So this is the site overhead of the area here, and the pitch we're talking about is where it highlights alongside a previously approved traveller's pitch. So this as a detail, this plan is the access plan that's also reproduced in the committee papers. So you see part of the highway contention was looking for more access detail, and this plan came forward as part of that. You'll also see within the committee papers, and I think I've probably got some photographs. This is showing a landscaping plan on the supplementary list. By the way, there's a condition, if approved, to secure some landscaping. Just looking, I guess I think the photos are actually probably within the committee papers, are they? That shows the existing access point. So it's a long established access. The access point actually here to the site. So the access point to the site itself is off that the access there. The highway department not recommended refusal, actually. They have raised issues of information. We got some information. They then asked for a safety audit. The applicants, a few points which they're entitled to, was that it's a long-standing access. Safety audit wouldn't achieve anything further. We're in the position where we have to make a recommendation, ultimately a decision. We don't have information that it is contrary to highway safety. It has been in long-standing use as far as I'm aware. The use for a pitch doesn't exacerbate any highway issues. There's no evidence of that. The situation for providing a pitch, in policy terms, we have what we call a criteria-based approach that's set out in the report within the policy. It does meet those, so it doesn't harm, from the point of view of highway safety, it doesn't harm the character and appearance of the countryside in the context of what's there, and the ability to put more planting there. You're probably familiar from what the council produces their authority monitoring report, an AMR. I think that's what it stands for now. The council does have good provision for gypsy and traveller pitches, but they're not minimums. This meets the criteria policy, and on that basis, the policy is satisfied and there's no evidence it will be harmful to highway safety. We recommend it for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Chair, thank you, Adrian. Sorry. There aren't any speakers on this application, so it's open to the committee. Councillor Elliott?
Yes, it's mentioned in this report in a number of places that there is not a peaceful integrated coexistence, and I know there isn't between the the applicant and the village of Keer. And I'm not saying that either of them are at fault, I don't know, but I don't think this is the right time to put another family in there, if you like, when there's quite a bit of trouble between the two parties.
Anybody else got any comments to make on this? I know there's been a lot of objections from local people. Councillor Gare?
Right, my concern would be future expansion. As this is set out now, it looks reasonable. I know nothing about conflict, but I do know that we at Lutterworth have a 56 static site which started out as a bungalow. I think that might be a slight exaggeration, but you know, I wouldn't. Is there any guarantee that this site would not expand in the future, that another caravan would appear, then there would be a retrospective application for planning permission, and it would go from static to travelling and so on and so forth. We've just seen 3 statics become 6 statics in Claybrook Palmer without permission. It was retrospective. So, I mean, this application as it stands, I would support it, but I have concern about the future expansion of the site. I realise it might be very difficult for this committee to give any guarantees. But there we are.
We have to be looking at what we've got in front
of us.
Adrian, could explain to us.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think 2 points, one from Councillor Elliott's, back up, and one from Councillor Gare. In terms of Councillor Elliott's concern about the community, without giving you one or the other, I think he's just saying that there is some concern about the community engagement. The evidence we have, if you like, in terms of making a recommendation to planning committee, yes, we do have objections to this, but we have comments reported from the police. We have comments reported from the county council, travel liaison officer, and we have actually no comments on the HDC community safety. But from those, if you like, experts in terms of crime in prevention, they're not raising those concerns. So the site will be subject to policing, for example, and we don't have a basis to say it cannot engage where the two communities together. So we wouldn't be able to substantiate that. In terms of Councillor Gare's point, I absolutely appreciate, I'm sure Councillor Gare knows, as Councillor Burrows said, and he said himself, there's no guarantees, we can only deal with what's before us, and that's what the scheme is. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone got anything else to say? I think the report actually puts it very clearly that I don't think there is very much that we, if we wanted to, that we could refuse it on. It's for a family member of the owner of the pitch next door. It's a small section of that field. I'm glad there is the landscaping, because I want to see very clear landscaping. I think some of the comments from people who wrote in said that at the moment there's no landscaping, there's no demarcation between that small pitch and the rest of the field, and obviously Councillor Gare, as you said, that leaves it open, but with a good strong fence around it, that would probably indicate that that's going to be one pitch. I know you're looking sceptical, but
sorry,
we have to look what's before us. So.
Exactly.
So has anyone got a recommendation for me? We have to decide. Councillor James, you recommend approval. Have I got a seconder for that? Councillor Wellband. Okay. So it's proposed by Councillor James and seconded by Councillor Wellband that we approve this application. All in favour, show, please. Okay. All those against? And I'll abstain on this one. So that application is approved. Thank you very much. Papers. The next application is at Great Glen. That's on page 161 of your papers. Application number 23/00505/FUL. Great Glen Post Office, 11 Stratton Road, Great Glen, and its first floor extensions to form a small flat. And the presenting officer is Samantha Hammond, please.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so this is effectively the creation of an additional flat above the existing post office in Great Glen. Thank you. So yeah, that gives you the aerial view. I've circled the site there. It's a former dwelling that was converted to a post office some decades ago with consent, post office and store. Some images there that give you a feel for how it sits in the very centre of Great Glen, in the heart of the village. It's a fairly straightforward application, I would say, with no objections from neighbours or statutory consultees, and it would be delegated except for a conflict with the parking policy in the Great Glen Neighbourhood Plan, which requires new dwellings, effectively this being the creation of a new flat, we would call it a new dwelling, to have 2 parking spaces, and this proposal would provide no parking. The frontage parking area that you see on the images is all dedicated to customers for the shop and the post office. And that's sort of very much the intention going forward, to alleviate concerns about people coming and going from that business. So the extensions are all at the first floor level. The ground floor footprint of the shop wouldn't change at all. There is an existing first floor flat in the existing part of the building, and that's accessed from an external staircase at the rear, which itself is accessed via the rear yard from the there's a footpath that runs up the side alleyway of the shop, so you can see just that top right hand picture is a little gateway which is key coded, and that's the entrance into the rear yard area, how you would gain access to the flats. Part of the proposal is to relocate the external staircase slightly further to the side. So at the moment, the top of the staircase, as you see on the photographs, is about here, and it leads across the flat roof into the existing flat here. But as part of this proposal, that staircase is moving over this way, and there would be a second walkway along here to the existing flat. And this walkway here would be extended to give access to the new flat. So in terms of design, the design is pretty good, really. It reflects all of the guidance in our SPD. Quite exemplary, really. It sort of completes what otherwise looks like a quite overly small property. The access via the rear yard has worked for many years as one flat, and it obviously we tidied and reconfigured for the second flat, so there's no reason to think that access wouldn't work for the second flat as well. The entry to the flat via the raised platforms is of interest in terms of the impact on neighbour amenity. So because that staircase is already there, I've been able to stand on that and sort of venture onto the flat roof area as well to take a couple of photographs to illustrate the impact that may be had on neighbours for people sort of using those walkways. So number 9 is illustrated there. I've shaded in green a little sort of outline of where they're proposing to put a privacy screen to cover the eventuality that people may sort of stand outside of the front door of this new flat, perhaps have a cigarette, next to the neighbour's window might not be the best thing, but with a little screen there, it's kind of just giving that separation. And apart from that, I felt that, sort of passage across this this route would be fleeting, really, and so that the separation there wouldn't be too adverse for the neighbour. And turning to number 13, this is the existing situation really, and this is the view from the external platform into the number 13's garden as existing, and that is the situation with the existing flat. These images just illustrate the fact that the nearest windows on this property are secondary windows, obscure glazed to a bathroom, and the actual nearest habitable window is some distance away. So where you've got the physical bulk of this first floor extension, it wouldn't be too closing in on those habitable spaces. The 45-degree line is not breached. So in terms of our guidance, it meets the requirements on neighbour impact. So I just look back to the main issue then really is the parking, conflict with the neighbourhood plan, which requires 2 off-road parking spaces. Just a few points to highlight, which are mentioned in the report. The existing flat above the shop doesn't have any parking. That was converted under permitted development because there is provision to be able to convert first floor space above a shop to flats, and there's absolutely no scope in those permitted development conversions to even consider parking. So that is quite a relevant consideration. The parish council's made a few points about limited provision of public transport, and all of those points have been considered, but we would note that, you know, it's a small unit geared to younger people, probably not a family home, and increasingly young people are car free. Buyer tenant beware when they sort of take a decision to take on a flat like this, so sort of self-polices the demand for parking, and there are safe and legitimate parking options in the area and buses, etc. And there's a condition requiring details of cycle provision within the yard to further facilitate the car-free living. So highways are quite supportive of this. They have no objections regarding the lack of parking, which is rare because they're usually the first to say when there's a shortage, but in this instance they're actively arguing why this no parking situation is acceptable in this instance. So our advice is that it would be ill-advised to resist the proposal on parking grounds despite that conflict with the Great Glen neighbourhood plan, this being what it is, a very small first home, probably 1-bedroom flat. So overall, we feel that the application should be supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. There are no speakers on this application, so it's over to the committee. Perhaps Councillor Mahal would like to go first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was actually further to comments made by yourself regarding car parking spaces. First of all, I wondered, does it have any impact on the neighbours? I mean, I think you mentioned that it's the windows, and no neighbours have complained about sort of overlooking their properties or anything. No one's objected, have they?
Through you, Chair, that's correct. There's been no neighbour objections whatsoever, and I think from speaking to the agent, he has actively engaged with both neighbours at either side, and they are, well, I'm told they are happy with the proposals. Nonetheless, I did feel, you know, that the need for sort of exploring that privacy screen for that neighbour was important, and also conditioned to ensure that there's no use of the rest of the flat roof area for sitting out or as a balcony or anything like that.
I mean, I am aware that there's not enough flats and things in the area for, as you say, young people who will primarily be without cars and things. There is public transport nearby as well, but as you say, I mean, also I think it's a flat roof, which hopefully now sort of apex roof might lessen the damage to a flat roof as well, or any other antisocial behaviour maybe. But yes, no, but I just wanted to say I think it's a good idea.
Any other speakers? Councillor James?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, Chair, because I do support the flat really, but I had cause to go to that shop about 2 weeks ago in my car. So, and I approached, if we looked at page 162, the lower photograph, I approached from that direction. It's quite a busy road. Therefore, you naturally sort of turn into the shop front and park. And it's quite messy, the parking there. And most people then, including me, had to reverse out onto the highway on an angle, which is quite blind. So I just wonder if, I mean, if someone occupies the flat and they do have a car, would they be permitted to park there? Because it's a bit risky, you know, it's a really messy parking arrangement. I just wondered if, you know, if that's a bit of a road safety issue, although generally I support the idea of a flat in the village, definitely. But we would expect, would we expect, or would the shop be comfortable with a resident in the flat parking there, where the green car is, I suppose?
Okay, well, we've it's covered off in condition 7 actually for the planning permission. We recommended condition 7 says that parking on the shop forecourt should be for short-term use by customers of the shop only and should not be used for the parking of vehicles associated with or making visits to the residential occupiers of the first floor. So that's come in as the proposal from the applicant, who is the store operator, and that is a position that's supported by Highways, because I think the need is to ensure that those parking spaces are left available for people that are making those short-term visits to the business. So with that condition in place, no, we would not expect anybody to be using that and reversing out the unsafe situation, if that's what it is an existing situation around the shop and not really affected by this planning application, because there are no changes proposed to that parking area.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott.
I'm happy for the flat to go ahead and that, but whenever I drive past there, there's cars parked all down the road and everywhere, and I would be a little concerned about the contractors building the flat and that they don't park there and make the job even worse.
Any comments on that?
I've just made a note of that because it is a good point. I wonder whether we could sort of add an informative to the planning permission to the effect of, you know, to sort of get details of where contractors' parking would be, and that yeah, it's yellow lined in the vicinity of the post office, so I believe that would mean they wouldn't be legally allowed to use that area, but as we know.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Wellband.
Yeah, just to say, I really like this because it's a great place for the younger people to live. They might not even have a car. They're going to be aware of the situation before they live there. So it might be somebody who works in the village. So it's nice to have an affordable flat which is suitable for younger people in the centre of the village. So happy to propose if nobody else has proposed.
Has yet.
Yeah,
so you're proposing. Can I have a seconder? Oh, Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, happy to second.
Okay, so that's proposed by Councillor Wellband, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favour of approving this application? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. And the final application tonight is at Market Harborough. So it's application reference 23/00709/FUL at the Market Hall, Northampton Road, Market Harborough, and our presenting officer is Sam Handemans again.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, this is a very straightforward application, just for heating modernisation unit, effectively a condenser unit outside the Market Hall in that corner of the car park that's marked there. Again, would be delegated, but for the fact that Harborough District Council are the applicant, so the scheme of delegation says that it's for the committee to decide. It's quite an inconspicuous location between an external staircase and an existing timber fenced compound. Photographs aren't on here, but I think there may be some in the papers. Yeah, So we're saying, this heating modernisation scheme is all about efficiency and carbon reduction strategy for the market hall. So acceptable in principle and in respect of neighbour impact, visual and conservation area impact, highways and parking wouldn't be affected. I'd just like to point out, if members are minded to go with officer recommendation on this, I'd like to just clarify with regard to the recommended conditions. The applicant has offered a timber screen to surround it, but you'll see from paragraph 7.4 of the officer's report that the case officer feels that's not necessary in terms of that visual amenity, and I would agree with that. So really, having concluded that that screen isn't necessary, a condition to require it wouldn't meet the test for conditions. So we are not recommending the inclusion of condition 3, despite what the papers say. So if members are minded to approve, I'll clarify that our recommendation would be subject to conditions 1 and 2 only. Condition 3 being considered unnecessary by officers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a fairly straightforward application which wouldn't have come to us except that we actually own the building. So has anyone got anything to say about this application? Councillor Grafton-Reid?
Quickly comment, I think it's entirely sensible. Should go ahead. There's no reason to object. The location is there for, it's not a parking place. It leaves no amenity. Provided health and safety in terms of the servicing of the unit is respected, and I see absolutely no reason why I should hesitate.
Okay, thank you. So you're proposing it?
I'll propose it.
Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Gare?
I will second that. Yes, I can see.
Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry. I can see no reason to refuse it either for the scale or for its purpose. It's the way we should be moving.
Okay, thank you very much. So it's proposed by Councillor Grafton-Reid and seconded by Councillor Gare for approval. All in favour, please show. That's unanimous and that application is approved. Thank you all very much. Right, so that was the last of our applications, and we've got one. The last thing on the agenda is to consider any urgent matters. Now, I have had an urgent matter sent to me, but on taking advice from the monitoring officer, she has decided and advised that it doesn't meet the criteria for an urgent matter. So we will discuss this. I'll discuss it with the applicant or with the councillor who made the urgent question after this meeting sometime in the future. So there are no urgent matters, and I declare this meeting closed at 8:04. Thank you all very much for coming.
Put the wooden fencing in, it would have looked worse.